Hey, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Something's going on with these schools. The older I get, the more I'm like, just forget public schools. School choice, yes, bring it on. Watch all the public schools go out of business because they do crap like this. Let me rewind. Before I get to the Fort Worth situation, there was already a situation where another superintendent had stepped down just last month.
Here we begin with breaking news.
And by the way, WFAA, our news partner, by the way, just for proper credit.
Grand Prairie, where the school board just voted to start the process of separating from its new superintendent.
Jorge Arredondo had only been on the job for 2 months before he was placed on leave for violating district policy.
Hang on a second. Boy, she really hit those rolled R's hard, didn't she? Jorge Arredondo. Like the rest of it's just an irregular old English, Texan accent, but Jorge.
So Witter was at tonight's meeting and joins us live.
Do the Jorge part.
New superintendent.
Jorge Arredondo had only been on the job for 2 months before he was placed on leave for violating.
Look, I know that's how you say it properly in Spanish, but you're speaking English. You can just say Jorge Arredondo. You know how I know you can just say Jorge Arredondo? I go back to WFAA when Home Skillet got in trouble at the beginning of last month.
And just in tonight, we have learned Grand Prairie ISD superintendent has been put on paid administrative leave effective immediately. Jorge Arredondo was hired in June.
It is possible. So these superintendent gigs are pretty sweet when you figure out how much these people make. I mean, how many of us would just love to get up to six figures? These people are making like $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 for what? For what? Did you? Is it really worth all that? Do we know? I mean, it's a government job. How much could it possibly be worth? But the more interesting one is some of the details we found out about this one. I asked, does some I can't say the word, something messed up in this contract, does this apply to Grand Prairie? Is this what's in most superintendent contracts? And I'm talking about these golden parachutes, like you hear for like Goldman Sachs or the Apple CEO getting fired. They have a golden parachute. But do we really need giant golden parachutes to be a superintendent in Fort Worth?
Update. Now, Fort Worth ISD is also operating without a superintendent right now after Dr. Angelica Ramsey was pushed out. And we just learned the size of her buyout. Ramsey's resignation took effect yesterday. And according to the agreement, she'll receive almost $550,000 to go away. Technically, Ramsey will stay with the district as an ambassador for public relations, but put on leave until next fall. She will receive her full salary during that time, $335,000 plus benefits.
What the heck was that? So you go dig a little more. She stepped down for poor performance. Now, she didn't get fired for cause, but she was pressured by the board to step down. They accepted her resignation 8-1. So now she's going to get, check out all this. What a sweet deal. She gets paid for all of her unused paid time off and sick days. Oh, that doesn't sound like a big deal. It's just $49,000. She also gets paid for her retirement plan contributions, whatever the excuse is. It's another $29,000. Oh, my God. Now, they can't fire her immediately. She's still going to be employed by the school district. Even though she had to resign for poor performance, she's going to be, they just made up a title for her. She's going to be the district's ambassador for public relations. And she's still going to get her full regular base salary, $335,000 plus stipends. So between the buyout, the salary for her new role, all the other checks they got to cut for her, it comes out to almost $940,000. $1
billion, million, 400 trillion, 600 billion dollars.
Man, that's a pretty sweet gig. Can I get me one of those superintendent gigs? If this is the deal, why don't you just take this job and like resign on day 2? Like fill out your HR stuff on the corporate intranet. You know how you have to click all those boxes, set up your retirement accounts and your 401k, and this is your new email, and you got to reset your passwords, and here's the key to the back. And day number 2, retire. That's it. Or resign. That's what you do. Just sign off on it. You have to pay me anyway. So let me get this straight. You got to go, people of Fort Worth, you got to go bust your butt at your regular job, not make $500,000 a year, still have money taken from you to give to this lady for her base salary, $335,000 to do jack squat. I'm upset by the, she still gets her paid time off and unused sick leave. That's ridiculous. And when you add it all up, $940,000 total buyout after she quits her job. I think it's ridiculous when like the Dallas Cowboys do that. Or like when the Houston Texans had to eat a big part of Deshaun Watson's contract after he left. But we're talking about people who make, what CeeDee Lamb's last contract, $130 million or $230 million, or how much was it, Joe Biden? Millions, billion, trillion, whatever.
Million, 400 trillion, $600 billion.
Should the superintendent of Fort Worth be getting a CeeDee Lamb style contract? Should they be getting a Goldman Sachs style golden parachute? Do any of the teachers in Fort Worth ISD get such a cushy gig? Do any of the librarians, do the janitors get it? Or is this just the special perks of being in the elite? And this isn't like the legit elite that you earn. This is government. You're a bureaucrat, and that you're taking this out of the taxpayers. This isn't coming from an evil corporation, or you're not having to pass on the cost of the consumers. This is taxpayer money that you're fleecing. You are stealing from the citizens who are unfortunate enough to live under the umbrella of Fort Worth ISD. Lady, go get another job. You made enough money. You're going to be fine. You're not going to get your lights cut off. You're going to land on your feet with the money you already got. You didn't do a good job anyway. I appreciate you trying, but the grift ends here. What is this job? You're not embarrassed to take this job? You don't think you're a little parasitic if you continue on to be the district's ambassador for public relations? What the hell does Fort Worth ISD need public relations ambassador for anyway? You going to go recruit new students? No, you can't. You're geographically landlocked. It's not even a thing. You're being ripped off, Fort Worth. And I think this might be happening in a lot of these big school districts. 800-288-9227. Explain to me how this lady deserves to get $940,000 taxpayer dollars after doing such a poor job as superintendent. She had to resign. I'm sure she's a nice woman, but that didn't give her the right to just steal from Fort Worth. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I want to hear from you next, and we're also going to hear from a criminologist about the increase in security around places of worship for Rosh Hashanah. Is that a thing? Yeah, that's a thing. We'll talk about it on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I'll talk about this coming up, the accusations of against Garth Brooks. Let me read a little bit more about it. This is sort of breaking news. You heard it from Mike Trainer there. And, aside from the obvious jokes, like, I guess he has hands in low places. I just want to read a little bit about it because I feel bad because sometimes in the past, I've reported on stories that the guy turned out to be exonerated. And then I felt bad because I just talked about what a sexual deviant he was for a few minutes, and it turned out to not be true. So give me a minute. But right now, a much more important story is in the headlines because it actually affects you. Whether or not Garth Brooks was improper with his hair cutter lady is not going to have the same effect on you as the longshoremen strike. The longshoremen strike from the East Coast, you already know the basic details. Everywhere from Maine to down in Houston, the longshoremen are striking. We learned today that the West Coast longshoremen, while they're not striking, they said any ships that are diverted to the West Coast, they're not going to unload them. So how long is this going to go on? Don't know. But if it continues to go on, we're going to have big supply chain interruptions. And supply chain interruptions, we learned during COVID, cause all kinds of problems. You have shortages, you have higher prices, and you have businesses that are just struggling to stay afloat because they can't get everything that they used to get because everything on the supply chain was so finely tuned. And the second this gets here, same time this other place gets here, I'll put these two together, then they'll get out of here. And if you interrupt that, a lot of chaos ensues. However, the longshoreman strike's interesting because not only does it have the possibility of tanking your household budget, it's brought up this discussion of automation. Do the dock workers deserve more pay? Do they deserve better working conditions or a more flexible schedule? I don't know. Probably not. Maybe so. Doesn't really matter. I'm interested in this automation part because in this one, Oh my goodness. They're so wrong on it. I mean, so bad. And I really feel bad for these guys because we're not telling them the truth. I don't expect ABC, NBC, CBS to tell them the truth, but you and I need to be telling these guys the truth. And no one has the nerve to tell them. No one that's going out there and interviewing them or having them in for sit downs and meetings. I'll tell you, I love doing this. I love being the guy, the high priest from the church of the hard truth. Here it is. A lot of your jobs, they're going to go away. And there's no way to stop it, period. That's it. That's it. That's the hard truth, longshoremen. Automation is going to happen. A lot of you are going to lose your job. You may be able to delay it, but come on now. But look, here's the good news. Longshoremen losing their job is good for everyone else. In fact, for you and me and Garrett and everyone else listening, the more longshoremen that get automated out of a job, the louder the rest of us should cheer. The cheaper things are going to be, the faster things are going to be, the more efficient things are going to be. And the more these guys are striking, I know it makes you feel like you're a nice guy to go out and be like, I'm with the little guy. I hope they get more pay. I hope they get a better standard of living. You should be hoping as many of them get fired as possible. That's the rational answer. Well, that's not very nice. Well, no, they're not being very nice to the rest of us. We just demand for everyone's prices to go up so I don't have to go find a new job. Screw you, pal. I've had to find like 10 new jobs in the last 22 years of my radio career. But listen, let's just compare this automation, because this happens in all other sectors. It's happened in radio. We used to have a guy that sat on that board over there that had to run songs or talk radio all night. Now we can automate it to where stations don't even have to have one person fogging up a mirror to be on the air. And we're better off for it. Aren't you better off now that our crops are harvested with big machines, that it's been automated, that we have giant combines instead of thousands of people just walking through the fields, hand picking everything, corn, cotton? You know how much your food bill would go up if we got rid of automation in agriculture? You know how bad your groceries went up over the last 5 years? It would be nothing compared to that. You know how much it would cost for you to have a t-shirt if we had to pick cotton by hand again? And this isn't a race thing. My grandmother picked cotton. But we are better off that all of these other industries have automated. It's more efficient, it's faster, it's cheaper. Same thing with the longshoremen. There's nothing special about being a longshoreman that you should be able to exempt yourself from the laws of progress and technology. And listen, if you're supporting the longshoreman stance against automation, you're just wrong. Would you support digging ditches with spoons? Because that's basically what you're asking. So I turned to, there was a Houston longshoreman to bring a Texas angle to this. He was making that argument to a fellow radio guy in Houston. Listen to this discussion.
I'm not in their union. I'm in the Transport Workers Union. They're asking for better rights. They're asking for more pay. They're asking for language to help them not lose their job through autonomy like all other companies. And they're fighting.
He says autonomy. You know he means automation. Let's not make fun of him for that. But listen to the point he's making.
Just for what they've already earned.
Do you think that if it's happening in places like Europe and Japan, the autonomy, the robots, that sort of thing, that it's inevitable in America? They're just pushing something off that's going to happen in a few years anyway?
Well, it already happened over there. And you look at the economy when it took a crash. Why don't we learn from other people's mistakes? We want to make the same mistakes they did and let autonomy take people's job and increase the
yeah, he says
poverty.
It's a mistake. It's a mistake. Oh, did they get rid of the robots and put the humans back in there? No, it's not a mistake. It didn't crash their economy. Their economies didn't crash because their boats were unloaded more efficiently by a robot than by a human being. That makes no damn sense. 1,000 other reasons an economy can crash other than the boats got unloaded faster and cheaper.
That's crazy. You learn from other people's mistakes. You don't keep them going.
But don't you feel like technology has always changed our lives? Like telling an accountant 80 years ago to be against the calculator, or telling someone that makes wagon wheels for a living to be against the automobile. Doesn't that seem a little futile?
It does to a certain point, but now you're talking about autonomy that's going to take thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs, not hundreds.
Good.
So if you keep using autonomy to take people's jobs, nobody's turning Social Security, nobody's turning taxes. As small as the machines inside Walmart, those machines aren't paying taxes. When I was growing up, they had 20 students earning a living, learning how to work in those cashier jobs. Now they have 2 cashiers and 20 machines. There's taxes not being turned.
Yeah. Common economic fallacies. But I want to hear from you, amateur economist. What's your thoughts on this automation part of the longshoreman strike? I think that's absolute fantasy. I don't think that they can stop that on a long enough time scale. They can only delay it at great expense to the rest of us, and they don't deserve it. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. All right, listen up. We're doing the next keyword. I know some people are playing the game to try and win the trip to see the Scorpions in Vegas. Or is it just Scorpions? Do I say V? They're going to be at Planet Hollywood. And the keyword for right now, residency. You text the word residency to 95819. That's right, residency. 95819. You can listen for another chance to win. Coming up on WBAP, and I think the next one's going to be on the morning show tomorrow. For a full list of contest rules, go to WBAP.com. Coming up next, Presley Baker, a political commentator and podcast host, talking about election 2024 on The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there. Welcome to The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, it's not a holiday weekend for me and the Parker family. It's probably not a holiday weekend for you, but for some of our neighbors, our Jewish neighbors, it's Rosh Hashanah. And there have been reports of some beefed up security because there's a terrible pattern of some of the Mideast turmoil spilling over into our shores. Is that going to be a big deal around here? Let's ask my next guest. Alex Del Carmen's back on the James Show. And Alex, have we done anything in Dallas that we know of to step up security for Rosh Hashanah?
Good afternoon. Yeah, absolutely. I think we're doing that all over the state of Texas and all over the United States, really. And obviously law enforcement is keeping it at a low profile because we don't want to tell people what we're doing.
Yeah, and I am guilty of not being aware of the issues going on here. And in fact, my producer booked this and I was like, why are we doing this? And then I did a Google search and I said, oh, okay, this is why we're doing it. There's a report came out today. Some gunman went into the home of a Michigan rabbi who was having a Rosh Hashanah gathering at his house. That just happened last night in Michigan. So, yeah, I guess this is a thing.
Yeah, if you look at some of the what's happened this morning, for instance, in the sense that now police departments like Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, New York, Chicago, LA have announced publicly that they are in fact engaging in proactive patrols and various other things that they're doing in order to make sure that in these particular Jewish centers and synagogues there aren't going to be any issues that happen, right? But sadly, as you and I have talked about in the past, all it takes is one person to find the opportunity and the right time when law enforcement may not be present in order to cause harm, and hopefully we'll be able to prevent that this year.
Well, Rosh Hashanah, it only lasts for a couple days, so if nothing happens like today or tomorrow, does that mean we're in the clear?
Not really, because we also have another 2 Jewish holidays coming up. And then not only that, but also I would say that this is just basically the alert of, or the, if you want to call it, preamble to a season, given the Middle Eastern conflict, that everybody has to sort of be on the lookout for. And I would say that it's not even specific to Rosh Hashanah or anything else, but it's more specific to the Jewish community, given the conflict in the Middle East. Are you Jewish? I'm not. I'm actually Catholic.
What are the two holidays?
Jewish roots.
Yeah. What are the two holidays coming up?
Well, so we have in the Hebrew calendar, right? So we have Yom Kippur, which comes up afterwards, and then obviously we go into our own Christmas holidays that they celebrate at the end of the year. But I think for us, Christians, and as well as for the Jewish community, Tishri, which is part of the 7th month of the Hebrew calendar, they have many holidays that are coming up in the coming weeks and coming months, and for us, it doesn't really matter in the law enforcement community whether or not they're celebrating or not celebrating a particular episode, given what happened in Israel 2-3 days ago, where the Iranians launched an attack against Israel. It really is launching an attack against every Jewish person in the world.
We are 4 days away from the anniversary of October 7th. I imagine there's some security concerns for that.
Absolutely. And I think that, as we've seen on 9/11 and we've seen in other significant dates for terrorists, when they do look at the calendar and dates are meaningful to them, right? And then not only them, I would also worry about those individuals that are the lone wolfers that are simply sitting down in front of a computer being radicalized, that they want to be inspired by a certain date and commit some sort of a crime against good people. So, these are interesting times, definitely. But as the conflict in the Middle East gets worse, our protection is going to have to be tighter in the United States.
Right. And then you add the historical perspective of how long have we been doing this, coordinating attacks on holidays. You see George Washington attacked Trenton on Christmas. You had the Tet Offensive, which was like the Vietnamese New Year, the Yom Kippur War. Benghazi was on September 11th. So, yeah, there's a disturbing pattern through history here, Alex.
Absolutely. And, as I often tell my graduate students at Tarleton, the best predictor for future behavior is past behavior, right? So we've learned a lot over the years in terms of the mechanisms, the systems in which terrorists attack us. But that's not to say that they're not going to find a new way to do it. So we have to stay ahead of the game and almost get into this philosophy of being able to predict and hopefully accurately what their next move is going to be so we can prevent it and hopefully arrest them before they do any harm against Americans.
Do you have any work we can find online? Do you have a podcast or a blog or something?
I should have a podcast and a blog, but they can, your listeners can find me at the Tarleton website on tarleton.edu, and I'm happy to interact with them. They can certainly email me, and I've received really great emails in the past, people asking really good questions, and so the conversation continues.
Alex Del Carmen, Tarleton State University. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you know what? That kind of thing slips my mind sometimes. It's good to be reminded of it. Your thoughts, 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. We're talking about the longshoremen strike next and how I've got some bad news for these guys. The cold, hard truth coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.